Hey everyone, welcome back to Beast Prep, where we break down complex political and legal topics in a way that's easy to understand. Today we're diving into a hot button issue that's been making waves, especially in 2025, martial law. Specifically, does President Donald Trump have the authority to declare it? And if so, under what circumstances? With recent headlines about federal takeovers in places like Washington, D.C., and even talks of military deployments in cities like Los Angeles, this isn't just theoretical, it's relevant right now. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our deep dives into topics like presidential powers, emergency declarations, and U.S. history. Let's get into it. Martial law. Those two words evoke images of military patrols, suspended rights, and government control. But what does it really mean? And can the sitting president, Trump, actually pull the trigger? We'll cover the definition, history, legal basis, and real-world scenarios. Stick around till the end for my take on what this could mean for America. Martial law is the temporary suspension of ordinary civilian law and its replacement with military authority. It's when the military takes over law enforcement, courts, and sometimes even government functions in a specific area or the whole country. This usually happens during extreme emergencies, like wars, invasions, natural disasters, or widespread civil unrest where regular police and courts can't maintain order. It's not the same as a state of emergency, which might involve curfews or resource allocation without full military control. Martial law goes further. It can suspend habeas corpus, meaning you could be detained without trial, and it shifts power from elected officials to the military. In the U.S., it's rare on a national scale because our Constitution emphasizes civilian control over the military. But both the President and Congress have powers to impose it under certain constraints. Think of it like this. In normal times, your local cops handle crime. Under martial law, soldiers might patrol streets, enforce rules, and even run trials. It's a big deal, often seen as a last resort because it can infringe on civil liberties. Critics argue it's a step toward authoritarianism, while supporters say it's necessary for restoring order in chaos. Martial law isn't new in America, but it's been used sparingly. One of the earliest national examples was during the Civil War. President Abraham Lincoln declared martial law and suspended habeas corpus to deal with Confederate sympathizers and rebellions. The Supreme Court later ruled in Ex parte Milligan in 1866 that martial law can't be imposed where civilian courts are still functioning. Fast forward to World War II. After Pearl Harbor, martial law was declared in Hawaii from 1941 to 1944. Military governors controlled everything from prices to censorship. It was challenged in court, but upheld during wartime. In the 20th century, it was used more at the state level. For example, during the 1960s civil rights era, presidents like Eisenhower and Kennedy sent federal troops under related laws to enforce desegregation in the South. But that wasn't full martial law. It was more about supporting civil authorities. Closer to home in 1992, after the LA riots, President George H.W. Bush federalized the National Guard. But again, not outright martial law. And in 2020, during the George Floyd protests, then President Trump considered invoking the Insurrection Act for military deployment, but didn't fully declare martial law. The U.S. Constitution doesn't explicitly mention martial law, but Article 2 makes the president the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, giving implied powers in emergencies. Congress also has a role under Article 1, as they control the military's funding and can call forth the militia. The key law here is the Insurrection Act of 1807, updated over time and now codified in 10 U.S.C. sections 251, 255. Signed by Thomas Jefferson, it empowers the president to deploy U.S. military and federalized National Guard inside the country for law enforcement. Here's how it breaks down. Section 251. If a state requests help from the president because of an insurrection against its government, the president can send troops. Section 252. The president can act unilaterally if there's an insurrection, domestic violence, or conspiracy that hinders federal laws or deprives people of constitutional rights, and local authorities can't or won't handle it. Section 253. similar for when unlawful obstructions make it impracticable to enforce laws by regular means. Section 254 requires the president to issue a proclamation ordering insurgents to disperse before using force. Importantly, the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878 generally prohibits using the military for domestic law enforcement, but the Insurrection Act is an exception. So yes, the president has broad authority, but it's not unlimited. Courts can review it, and Congress could repeal or amend the act. Applying this to President Trump? Absolutely, yes. As the current commander-in-chief, he has the same powers as any president under the Insurrection Act to declare martial law or deploy troops domestically. Congress might authorize it too, but the president can act alone in many cases. Trump has shown interest in these powers before. In 2020, he considered it for protests, and now in 2025, we've seen actions like federalizing the DC police and deploying the National Guard in Washington, D.C., citing high crime rates. Though critics call it a pretext for martial law-like control, there's also been militarization in Los Angeles, challenged by states like California, and discussions about using it for border security. The Insurrection Act spells out the circumstances, primarily insurrection or rebellion against the government, domestic violence that prevents law enforcement, or when federal laws can't be executed. This could include widespread riots, terrorist attacks, natural disasters overwhelming local response, or even election-related unrest if it escalates. For example, if a state governor requests aid for an uprising, or if the president deems it necessary unilaterally. But it has to be when civilian authorities are impaired. Trump could invoke it for immigration enforcement at the border, as floated earlier this year. However, it's controversial. Opponents say it could be abused for political gain, like suppressing protests. In summary, President Trump does have the authority to declare martial law under the Insurrection Act in cases of insurrection, violence, or law enforcement breakdowns. But it's a powerful tool with historical checks and potential for abuse. What do you think? Should presidents have this power? Drop your thoughts.